Apartments. I hate them. You hate them. We all hate them. You probably live in one right now. Or you did. Or you will. Or you know someone that lives in one right now. What is up, guys? Coming at you again with another video. Today we're going to be talking about apartments and how much they suck. And my experience with them. Seeing as how a majority of Americans are renting now, I'm sure some of you guys can relate to this topic. So let's get into it. So I moved out of my parents' house in February 2021 to my first apartment. And it was actually not that bad. Maintenance was great. The management was also great. It was this little old lady. She was super nice. She never gave me any trouble. And maybe towards the end, but we'll get to that later. And she even let me look at my own apartment before I moved into it. I was able to pick out basically like any apartment that was available. And she let us look into it and see if it was something that we wanted. And if not, we were able to pick something else. So it was already off to a great start, and I picked the top floor apartment. It was just 2 floors, but I picked that one, and we didn't have trouble in there. Everything was kept up with. I mean, things were dated, but it wasn't anything like run down or broken. Everything was working well. Even the dishwasher, I never use a dishwasher, but it was there. Everything worked. I never had a problem with it. Rent was like less than $600 back then. It was 2021. It was quiet. The neighbors were quiet. The area was quiet, minus a few things, but I'll get to that later. And yeah, I just never had a problem up until before we actually, like, towards the end of our lease, really. So since I didn't really have that many problems, I did have a huge problem towards the end, but like I said, I'll get to that a little bit later. Since I didn't have a lot of problems with the apartment, I can actually kind of go chronologically in order of when things kind of started going wrong. So first off was one of the big things that kind of went wrong with the apartment complex was we had a gate that opened and closed. So it was considered a gated community. It was advertised as a gated community. So that was kind of nice to have in the after hours so you wouldn't have suspicious people coming in and out. One day, just somebody in the middle of the night rammed into it, knocked it down, and ended up running away. So the gate was taken down, and we just never got it fixed and never got replaced. And to this day, even when I drive by the apartment complex, it's still gateless. So it's still being advertised, I think, as a gated community, but there's no gate. So that was the first sign of trouble for me, when they didn't even get around to trying to fix the gate or anything. They just tore it down and hauled it off. And I understand things like that take time and money, but it's advertised as a gated community, so I mean, lower the rent or something at least, please. And a couple months after that happened, the management office / the lady's apartment got broken into. So how this happened was me and my girlfriend were doing laundry in the morning, and the laundry building was right next to the office building. So in between loads, we went to go check our laundry, and walking out, we noticed that the sliding glass door was open. And I thought that was really odd because I knew that she wasn't in town, because she had told us prior to that she wasn't going to be in town. So we just kind of checked it out, and we could see in the inside of her apartment there was just documents and paper just thrown everywhere. And we called the cops. We let the maintenance people know that, hey, someone had broken into her apartment. And then she came back, and we ended up talking to her, come to find out that someone broke in and did steal a bunch of her stuff and just kind of made a mess of the place. So that wasn't really a good sign of the security at the apartments. There was no cameras. I mean, the gate was already torn down, so nobody really knows who it was. They never found out, and there was no leads. I mean, I never found out anything after that. We just kind of just shook everyone up and thought it was really odd that her apartment specifically got broken into. So a couple months after the office got broken into, nothing really happened. Just a couple minor things here and there that aren't really worth mentioning, just neighbors arguing and stuff like that. But November rolled around, and the property manager, she reached out to me and asked me if I had paid the rent for October. I let her know that I did, but the mistake I made was I was paying with cash up until that point. I just didn't know you weren't supposed to do that, and everyone lectured me on that after the fact. So now I know, but if you're gonna be paying rent or anything like that, do not use cash. It's gonna fuck you over. So I let her know that I did, and she said, okay, well, don't worry about it. I know you usually pay, so make sure to pay again next time, or don't pay in cash or something, just to show proof that we did have this transaction of a rent payment. And we just let that thing go. We let all that go. And December came and went, and this is kind of where we started having problems. So the second week of January, it was like January 10th, we got an eviction notice that we had to pay the rent for October, I mean, the missing rent because apparently someone had broken into the lockbox and stolen that rent. Now, this is where paying in cash fucked me over, because if I had a cashier's check, a check, or anything at all that had a paper trail, I could have proven that I did pay my rent, but because I didn't have a paper trail, I wasn't able to prove anything. So the property management company was trying to get their money back. I went to the property manager and I told her, and she knew, she was on my side. She knew that I had paid, that I had no reason to lie. I had no reason to miss a payment. But she was being told that she had to enforce it, and it wasn't just me. It was like 20 something people that had their rent stolen. I don't know if their payments were in cash, if they were cashier's checks, if they were checks, regular checks, anything like that. I just knew that aside from me, 20 other people's rent got stolen. I tried getting into contact with the property management company, and every time I called, I just got left on voicemail. I left numerous voicemails. I couldn't find an address. I couldn't get an email. I couldn't find any way to reach out to them. I even asked the property manager if I could get a phone number, and I got that phone number, and someone eventually answered, and I explained the situation to them, and they said they'll get back to me, and they just never called me back. I called them numerous times, just straight to voicemail. I was never able to explain my situation or what had happened, and in the end I just ended up paying the rent all over again. At this point I was just super fed up with everything and wanted to leave, but I only had a week left on the lease, so I didn't have much time to look for an apartment. I took a day off of work to look around, and nothing was really available, or everything was just super expensive. Luckily I was able to find one that same day, and I was able to schedule a tour the day after, and this is just where it gets infinitely worse from the current situation that I was in. So I went to the tour the day after in the morning before work, and everything seemed fine. The apartment seemed fine. They seemed clean. In retrospect, they were fucking disgusting, but everything seemed fine during the tour. I was shown like an updated apartment, so I was kind of lured into thinking that, oh, these apartments aren't that bad, that they were a step up from what I was getting out of, despite them being like another $200 something around there. So I didn't really mind it, and I was able to pay the rent with my girlfriend, well, my girlfriend at the time, and everything seemed fine till we actually moved in. And this is where it just gets, it becomes a fucking nightmare. The day we moved in, we didn't even see the actual apartment, and I'm aware that some apartments don't even show you the apartment that you're gonna move into until you actually move in. It was fucking disgusting. We unlocked the door, and we just got blasted by a fucking wave of just weed, cat shit, cigarettes, and it was just a culmination of smells that I just had never smelled before, and it was disgusting. We had to open the window, we had to leave all the windows open, we had to leave the doors open, and it just wouldn't go away. So we moved all our stuff in, and we left all this stuff in the front room, and we had to stay in our bedroom for like the first month basically because it smelled so bad. And we put in multiple complaints of how bad the smell was, so they had to come in and peeled some of the carpet off because apparently there had been cats there, and they had pissed all over the floor, and I guess the spongy material that's under the carpets absorbed all of that, and they had to replace that to take away the smell, but it really didn't do anything. It went from like 100% power to like 80%. So over time, me and my girlfriend at the time had to remedy that by just constantly cleaning and putting different like odor eliminators to take out the smell. The neighbor we had was also a chain smoker, so that also explained the problem of it constantly smelling like cigarettes. Even after we cleaned everything, we literally wiped down the walls, wiped down the windows, everything in that apartment to take out that smell. We thought the prior tenant was the one that made it smell like that, but no, it was our neighbor. So it always smelled like cigarettes no matter what, and we put in multiple complaints that he would smoke, and we even asked him a couple times like, hey, could you at least smoke outside? And nothing was ever done about it. You could visibly see his windows and his blinds yellowing and browning because of how bad the cigarette smell was. It was fucking disgusting. It was probably one of the worst neighbors you could ever have. During the final walkthrough, I even had to explain to the property manager that it wasn't us that was smoking in there, that it was our neighbor that had smoked. And you could even see this visible runoff from, I guess, the smoke condensating with the water from the bath or something, from our bathroom, and it started dripping down our walls, and it was like that the entire time that we were there. Other than that, he also had people coming in and out, and it looked like they would smoke weed or do drugs or something. They always looked strung out. It was always different people. We just never had that peace of mind that there wasn't suspicious people around our apartment. when we were gone during the day. Luckily, nothing ever happened, but there was just always that idea in the back of our head, like, what if somebody tried breaking into our apartment while we weren't there? Because there was just always different people there. Luckily, nothing ever happened like that. We could just really complain about the smell of weed and cigarettes coming from his apartment. The apartments didn't really care. They always put out multiple notices that you're not supposed to be smoking, and they just never did anything. To this day, I don't know if they ever did anything about that or enforced it, but they did tell us multiple times that we're not supposed to be smoking anything in the apartments, that should be done outside. It just was never taken care of, and it fucking sucked. When we moved out, we had to throw away all our furniture and some of our clothes because of the smell. It just penetrated our smell so bad that we had to get rid of stuff. And I got asked multiple times by my own parents if I started smoking cigarettes because of the smell. It was so bad. And I don't smoke cigarettes or vape. Yeah, it was just that bad that it made us smell like cigarettes. And it was pretty fucking sad and kind of humiliating, honestly, that me and my wife had to smell like cigarettes the whole fucking time we lived there. Like I mentioned before, there was always a lot of suspicious people in the apartment complex, and I mean, I don't want to be rude, but there would always be homeless people just kind of sleeping anywhere they could find to sleep, or if they had a car, they would sleep in the parking lot. When they would leave in the morning, they would just throw out all their trash onto the parking lot, and the trash would just sit there. Nobody would pick it up. The maintenance people wouldn't pick it up. The landscaping people wouldn't pick it up. Nobody would pick it up, and it would just sit there for days on end until I guess someone got tired of it and actually cleaned it up. Aside from that, there was no security. There was fake cameras everywhere. There was a phone number for security, like for after hours. They just never would answer if something would happen or if you tried reporting something. And my car got broken into once. My wife's car got broken into once. Funny enough, my license plate got stolen twice by random people. They got caught, but just the fact that happened twice was a headache. The maintenance was also subpar. The first time I ever called him, the guy went to my apartment to look at the air conditioner and the heater because the heater was out or something was wrong with the heater during the winter time, and he started asking me for how to fix it. I looked at him like, dude, this isn't my job. I don't know anything about HVAC to begin with. So I told him, I don't know, this is why I called you. And he just put duct tape and stuff, and that was about it, and didn't really work after that. And I had to call them again, and they eventually got it fixed. But the fact that they started asking me how to fix it just shows how shitty of a maintenance crew they had. In the summer of that following year, our AC went out during the hottest week of the year, and it took basically the whole week to get that fixed. And it wasn't just our unit, it was multiple units with the AC out, and we didn't get any accommodations, any portable AC units or any window units to help us get through it. So we stayed in our room with an AC that we had to go buy, and we stayed in that room the whole time till it got fixed. Plumbing was also another huge issue. It wasn't that it would leak or anything like that, but it'd be multiple times where they would just shut off the water because there was so much work that they had to do replacing stuff. I wasn't sure exactly what was wrong or what they were replacing, but our unit had the water off at the most random time. So you would get home, imagine you get home after a long day of work, especially me, I'm fucking sweaty and shit. I'm trying to get home and shower and start cooking dinner and eat something, and the water's off, and I'd have to wait, maybe not even wait, I'd have to go to my family's house and go shower before I could do anything else. And that happened multiple times. Or you'd wake up in the morning expecting to go to the bathroom, brush your teeth and stuff, and you can't. Why? Because the water was out all the time, and it was just a huge headache. We would get notices sometimes, but it was far and few between, and we'd have to complain multiple times of at least tell us so we can coordinate and get with our families and let them know, hey, is it cool if I go shower or take care of the stuff I gotta take care of? But yeah, that happened multiple times, and it was just a huge fucking headache at the most random times and inconveniencing times. And now for my least favorite part of this experience: cockroaches. I don't know where they would come from or how they would get in, but from spring to fall, they would invade the apartment complex. Our apartment was always clean. We never ate in their rooms. We never left food out. We always took out the trash when it was getting full, and they would just take over our apartment. We don't know how they would get in. We would always spray. We'd let the property manager know, like, hey, we have a pretty big roach problem, and the spray still wouldn't do anything. They were just tough as hell to get rid of. Anytime I saw one coming from just any random crack, I would just put caulking over it, and it kind of helped stop them from coming in. So I guess they were coming from the neighbor, the smoking neighbor. And after a while, I didn't see any more because of the cracks that I had filled in and so much spray that we would put. So it kind of helped doing that. But every so often, every couple months, if anything, we would go through our pantry and our cabinets, and there would just be loads of dead ones all over the place. choice, and we just could never find where they were coming from. And after living there for 2 years, we didn't renew our lease, and we were finally able to get a house. And I just gotta say, that was probably one of the worst living experiences I've ever had. And I've lived in multiple states and multiple houses my entire life. That was probably the worst one I've ever had. I would look at the reviews and I just couldn't understand how people would leave them 5 to 4 stars at saying that the maintenance was great, that the management was great. I swear they were either paid or something to leave those kind of reviews, because I remember seeing a guy had it worse than us, that he had a literal hole in his ceiling and it didn't get fixed for months on end. They didn't lower his rent, they didn't do anything. He put literal pictures on the review of the hole. He didn't get any accommodations. He couldn't get moved into another apartment or anything. There was also something about rats, but there was a lot of stray cats around there, so we never had a problem with rats, but apparently there was rats there as well. But luckily we didn't have to go through that, just the cockroaches. It was one of the worst places I've ever lived at. I hope the place crashes and burns. I don't know how people are still living there. Before we left, we saw a lot of vacant units, so hopefully people just stop living there. I can't see how you would want to raise your family there. Now, I understand everyone's life is different and life can change at a whim, but if you have the option and you're young, don't move out into an apartment, especially right now. Rent is just through the roof. It's not worth paying. You could literally buy a house and it would just be way less than an apartment. I've seen apartments going for $2,000, $3,000 that were $1,000 a couple years back. So it's just not worth it anymore. So a couple tips I would just recommend for younger people is don't move out. You got to save up at least 20% for a down payment on a house. So don't use that money on a deposit for an apartment. Use that money to go towards a house, and it's 20%. So I mean, go to the bank, see how much you're approved for if you have a stable career or a job going, and then just do the math from there, or just look at the price range, look at something that you're wanting and just go from there. But if you're still living with your parents and you're young, try to build up your career, try to save up money for a house or pay off your car or whatever, but just try not to get an apartment or a rent house or anything. It doesn't matter if your friends are saying, "Oh, let's move in together," or your significant other saying, "Oh, let's move in together." Just trust me, it's way better getting a house. Save up for a house. I mean, if your friends want to share a house with you, cool. You can get a mortgage in your name and they'll help you pay off the house for the next few years that they're living with you, or your significant other or a sibling, whatever the case is. But if you're young and you're able to do it, don't rent an apartment, don't rent a house. It's just not worth it. Hopefully my story sways you to not go towards that direction, because it just fucking sucks. It's a nightmare. It's not fun. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.